Something has gone out. Not the lights around you, not the people, not the circumstances of your life, which may be, by any objective measure, completely intact. What has gone out is interior, a sense of direction, a relationship with meaning, a feeling, however faint, that what you were doing mattered, and now it is simply not there. You look for it the way you look for something you cannot remember putting down. You try the conversation that used to help, the walk that used to clear your head, the work that used to feel like it meant something. And they are all still there, offering exactly what they always offered, and none of it reaches you anymore. This is not depression, or not exactly. You have not lost anything you can name. The darkness is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with sufficient force to justify how seriously it sits on your chest. It is simply an absence, not the presence of pain, but the disappearance of light. Mystics called it the dark night of the soul. And what they understood, centuries before psychology had language for it, is that this is not something happening to you. This is something happening in you. And the difference between those two things is the difference between a crisis to be survived and a passage to be entered. In the 16th century, a Spanish mystic named Juan de la Cruz wrote about a particular kind of spiritual suffering he had lived himself. He called it Noche Oscura del Alma, the dark night of the soul. His original meaning was theological. The person who had built their entire inner life around a sense of divine presence, and then found, without explanation, that it had gone silent. The prayer that used to feel like a conversation became a monologue aimed at an empty room. The practices that had sustained them ceased to produce anything. The light by which they had navigated simply went out. But what is remarkable is what San Juan did not say. He did not treat this as failure. He did not tell the person to try harder, believe more firmly, practice more consistently. He treated the darkness as a necessary passage, the specific work the psyche performs when moving from one mode of being to another, when the old mode must be dismantled before the new one can take its place. This is the insight that depth psychology spent the next 4 centuries slowly rediscovering in secular language, a distinction that matters. The dark night is not depression. Depression tends to flatten. It reduces the range of feeling, makes the future feel foreclosed, introduces a cognitive narrowing recognizable as pathology. It is weight. It is the world contracting. The dark night has a different structure. It is not about the future feeling impossible. It is about the present feeling suddenly hollow. The scaffolding of meaning is still intact and has simply stopped working. The map is correct. The territory has changed, and a transition, by definition, requires that you move through it rather than around it. Carl Jung spent decades studying what he called individuation, the lifelong psychological work of becoming who you actually are, rather than who you were shaped to be. And one of his most important observations was this: individuation is not a gentle process. The self you have constructed, the identity, the beliefs, the framework of meaning, the stories about who you are and where you are going, is not simply expanded as you grow. At certain threshold moments, it is required to collapse. The container has to break before a larger one can be built. This collapse feels from the inside like the dark night. It feels like loss, like failure, sometimes like a kind of death. the self you have known becoming unreachable, becoming something you can no longer inhabit with any conviction. This is why the dark night tends to arrive not at the worst moments of a life, but at what should be the best ones. After the achievement, after the arrival. Because it is precisely when the old framework has achieved everything it was capable of achieving that the psyche recognizes its insufficiency and begins clearing the ground for what comes next. Albert Camus described a parallel experience from a secular direction, the confrontation with the absurd, the moment when a human being who is constitutionally oriented toward meaning encounters the radical silence of a universe that offers none. When the stories we use to create the feeling of meaning suddenly lose their power to convince. Camus was not describing nihilism. He was describing an encounter, specific, datable, transformative, with existence stripped of its narrative covering. And his most important observation was the one he shared across 4 centuries with San Juan de la Cruz. This encounter is not the end. It is the beginning, but only if you do not flinch from it. Viktor Frankl proposed something that should not work but does, that suffering with meaning is categorically different from suffering without it, not in its intensity, in what it does to the person who undergoes it. Suffering without meaning hollows. It accumulates as weight, as bitterness, as the slow erosion of the capacity to find anything worth caring about. Suffering that has been placed within a framework where meaning is possible does something different. It deepens. It creates what Frankl called the specific human capacity for transformation through adversity. The dark night is suffering of the second kind, but only if you do not treat it as suffering of the first kind. The most common and most devastating response to the dark night is to treat it as a malfunction, to reach for every available resource and demand to be fixed, pharmaceutical, therapeutic, relational, occupational, anything that will restore what has gone dark. And the tragedy is not that these resources are bad. It is that they are being asked to do the wrong thing. The dark night is not a malfunction. It is a function. The darkness is not the absence of something good. It is the active presence of something necessary. And interfering with it delays the very transformation it is attempting to initiate. San Juan de la Cruz described something almost impossibly counterintuitive. The darkness of the dark night is not the darkness of absence. It is the darkness of excess. The darkness you experience when something is so present, so close, so overwhelming that your ordinary perception cannot register it. The way you cannot see the sun by looking directly at it. Not because the sun is not there, but because it is too intensely there. What is being dismantled is not your capacity for meaning. It is the specific, limited structures through which you have been experiencing meaning. The frameworks that worked for the person you were are insufficient for the person you are becoming. And in the dark night, with those frameworks suspended, you sometimes see, for the first time, what they were hiding. The commitments made from fear rather than love. The version of yourself you'd been performing. The things built around an identity that was never fully yours. The darkness is not empty. The darkness is full. And what it is full of is precisely what you need to see. The question that the dark night always eventually asks, the question it is, in some sense, entirely composed of, is not, why is this happening to me? The answer to that question changes nothing about the experience, and nothing about what is required of you. The question is, what is being asked of me here? Because something is being asked. The dark night is not random. It is not punishment. It is not evidence of failure or weakness. It is the psyche's serious, patient, insistent way of communicating that the person you have been is no longer large enough for the life trying to come through you. And the only way forward is not back to what you were, but through the dissolution of what you were, towards something you cannot yet name, because the framework that would allow you to name it does not yet exist. You cannot think your way through the dark night, or research it, or optimize it. The only thing that works is what has always worked for every human being who has navigated this territory. To stop fighting the darkness, to stop demanding that it justify itself, and to begin, very quietly, to allow it to do what it came to do. Camus wrote, in a private notebook never published in his lifetime, "In the middle of winter, I at last discovered that there was in me an invincible summer." He was not describing the end of the dark night. He was describing something he found inside it, not despite the darkness, inside it. In the place where the old frameworks had dissolved and before the new ones had formed. In that specific, terrifying, irreplaceable interval of not knowing, something was present that no amount of certainty had ever been able to provide. If you are in the dark right now, if the light that used to orient you has gone silent and the frameworks you navigated by have stopped working, I am not going to tell you it will be all right. I do not know if it'll be all right in the way you mean when you ask that question. What I will tell you is this: the darkness you are in is not empty. Something is happening there that you cannot yet see. And the most important thing you can do, the only thing that actually helps in the end, is to stop demanding that it stop, and to begin, very quietly, to listen to what it is trying to say.